to work today, Mr. Harris.
Really? How early?
I think
At
I got
dark 30?
Huh?
At dark 30, I like to call it.
No,
when the
it
sun
was
is not up, but the moon
no,
is.
it wasn't that early, but I must have got here like about 2ish.
Oh, really? Wow.
Hey, what are you doing here? But anyway, that's because my day I had kind of finally freed up so much time
Uh-huh.
on certain things that I said, hey, let me go to the office,
Yes.
studio,
Yes.
and do something else.
Okay.
So that was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Well, we
Not
got
the usual sort of, 3:45, 4:05, dragging your butt in here, kind of, what is it? What, 4:25? Hollywood delivery style.
Hollywood delivery. It's all right. You're a celebrity. You can walk in. You can be fashionably late.
Yeah.
Which you never are. Just fashionably on time.
Yeah.
Well, things are getting busier. The clock is ticking down to April 30th. Of course, general election date. And hopefully we will be, like others, exceedingly busy as we approach that deadline. Again, a good opportunity to remind the listening audience that tomorrow night, immediately following the Straight Talk program at 6:30, starting at 7 o'clock, Bobo FM will host the Chamber Candidates Leaders Forum, which will feature, obviously, the Leaders Debate featuring Andre Ebanks, Dan Scott, and Joey Hugh, I believe. Will be the three leaders debating in that forum. Should be rather interesting.
Yep.
Hopefully, the chamber chooses to ask some of the poignant questions, certainly maybe even some of them that we've raised, the challenges in financial services, the deficit that the government and, of course, the next government will find itself
What?
placed
There's a
in.
deficit?
Can you believe it?
This is news?
Yes. We're going to start the new government administration, as we discussed yesterday, not in the black, but in the red, whoever that administration is, obviously tying their hands and making it exceedingly difficult. Before they can even get going, they got to climb out of a hole. So, Again, I think that's rather significant. Interestingly enough, though, I see, whilst the facts bear out that we will end the 2025 fiscal year in deficit, almost to the tune of about $80 million, we see members of the government out there touting that there's a $60 million surplus. So clearly, somebody's set of arithmetics are slightly different, but it is campaign political silly season time. So, if they can sell it to you that you believe it, well, obviously that's the goal,
Well,
right?
to that, let me give you a joke. One time I got on the airline and walked, my seat apparently was all the way in the back.
Okay.
It used to be the smoking section.
Used to be. The good old days.
When I was very young.
Okay.
And so either way, I'm sitting down by someone and they say, how come you're sitting in the back? I guess they were expecting me to be, at the front somewhere.
Right.
I'm like, hey, look at this positively. I would be in first class if we were flying in reverse.
Yes, you would be.
So I
look on the bright side.
I just thought I would mention that as you talk about deficit versus surplus, right?
Right.
Just
Indeed.
depends on which direction you're walking on.
Indeed, and it also depends on your whole outlook.
Correct.
On the situation.
You got to look at this thing positively. You can either see an $81 million deficit or a $60 million surplus. Come on.
It's a chance for the next government to show their character and their ability to get out of a tight situation.
Yeah.
They'll be faced with a challenge right out of the gates. So, again, we wait, we watch, we encourage the 25+ thousand voters that are now registered.
See, let's think about that for a moment, right?
Yeah.
Just going on this accounting pun. If it is the situation, as you say, the $81 million deficit, the government gets elected and they say, hey, we made a $60 million surplus. But we're still $21 million in the hole.
Yeah, quite right.
So, it's all in the wording.
It's all in the wording, indeed. But it is certainly not a laughing matter when we consider the realities attached with that. And as we talked about yesterday, the ongoing challenges that are being faced in financial services, the potential challenges that are being faced in tourism. There are a few, how should we say, rays of sunshine, which hopefully we can talk a little bit about before we receive today's guest. But there are a number of challenges for the Cayman Islands that are lying ahead, and it is so critical, absolutely critical, that voters make the right call on April 30th. Not just in the referendum questions, mind you, but in the overall selecting the next government situation as well. Today, of course, is Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to our listening audience. Those of you tuned in, of course, live on Bobo 103.1 FM on your radio dial, but also simulcasting, as usual, on YouTube, Instagram, and now Facebook, coming to you live and direct, as we say in this part of the world. Coming up at 5 o'clock, it's Tuesday, and that means it's time for more. Jordan Rivers will be our guest in studios, the candidate for West Bay North, running with the Cayman Islands National Party, will be our 5 o'clock guest today. And amongst the topics on the agenda, we will be discussing crime, police engagement, and what many have said or suggested is the need for a sex offenders registry. We're going to hear what Mr. Rivers' thoughts are in these three areas and, of course, more. The phone lines will be open throughout the conversation, encouraging members of the public, but particularly constituents of West Bay North, to reach out and join the conversation and learn more from your candidate who will be vying for your vote on April 30th. But before we get to that, always, whenever it's available, we want to start out with some good news. And there is some good news in the headlines today, and I thought, well, why not share them before we commence with our primary topic for today.
Austin.
We see in the headlines that 13 new officers have joined the Cayman Islands Coast Guard. 13 recruits took part in their graduation ceremony on Friday.
There's that magic number again.
Yes, as they officially joined the ranks of the Cayman Islands Coast Guard, according to, I think, the Cayman Compass today. The 13 were among some 200 candidates who originally applied for the position, but of course, many are called, but only few are chosen. Well, those that get through the recruitment process and obviously the physical fitness aspect of the course, only 13 out of 200 made the passing mark, but that's 13 more added to the Cayman Islands Coast Guard, which I think is something really positive. We want to congratulate those 13 as well as to continue to congratulate the Coast Guard for going from what seems to be from strength to strength. In a statement, the Coast Guard noted that these young Caymanians have demonstrated unwavering commitment and remarkable character throughout their rigorous training. As they embark on this honorable journey of service and protection, they now join a tradition of excellence and courage. The waters they patrol may be challenging, but they have been prepared to meet every obstacle with professionalism and determination, and we wish them fair winds and following seas throughout their career. So yes, if you are amongst the 13th to just recently join the ranks of the Cayman Islands Coast Guard, congratulations to you. And if you are among the other, 180, help me with the math, 200 minus 13?
To what?
200 minus 13.
That would be 187.
There you go. For the other 187 who did not perhaps meet the mark, let me encourage you, do not be discouraged. There'll be another, obviously, application opportunity next year, and we hope you will certainly take the opportunity to try out then. And maybe in the interim, consider perhaps some of the areas that you think you may have fallen short. And as we say, work on those areas during the off season, and that will only stand to improve your chances. Turning from the Coast Guard to our airlift, we also see in the headlines that Delta Airlines is set to resume non-stop flights between Detroit and Grand Cayman this winter, with service starting in December 2025 and running through April 2026. In a statement from the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism, they said the return of the Detroit service from such a major Delta hub was a testament to the growing demand for the Cayman Islands during this period, and it said it would be working closely with the U.S. airline to promote this route. The weekly service between Detroit and Grand Cayman on Delta will start again on December 20th, 2025, and run until the 12th of April, 2026. Now, again, this is good news because whilst we spent a great deal of time talking about the cruise tourism side of the conversation, and specifically as it relates in relation to the referendum questions, but this is good news for stayover. It would be nice if we could, set some rather lofty targets for ourselves and stay over. Maybe, getting past the 500,000 stay over tourist target area, or glass ceiling, I've called it for many years. But in order to achieve that, I was giving it some thought. And well, we see plans clearly in the works for that. The airport expansion is set to be heard by the planning department. Interestingly enough, we don't hear a peep from the environmentalists, of course. But the airport expansion, you will see a runway.
You haven't heard a peep from the environmentalists on what?
On the airport expansion, which will include extending the runway into the North Sound. They say only a smidge. I don't know what a smidge means, but certainly they will be extending the runway. Presumably, if you're going to extend the runway, you're looking forward to inviting or encouraging larger air carriers, bigger planes, perhaps even from faraway jurisdictions as, say, the Middle East, Dubai, and certain areas like that. As we learned from Mr. Chastanet, Dubai are working on their third airport or something to that effect. So clearly, stay over tourism is big over there. Maybe extending a runway is setting the foundation for, I had to find the word there for a second. Setting the foundation.
First day with my new mouth.
First day with my new mouth and the new lips. Setting the foundation for perhaps larger aircraft and greater airlift capacity. But for the folks who obviously scream about the overdevelopment, if you want stay over tourism to grow, you're going to need to increase your room stock. That means more hotels, whether it be on the 7 Mile Beach Strip, which I don't know where we're going to put them, but also perhaps an opportunity to engage in that whole, Plan Cayman and Go East initiative, if you will. Certainly opportunities for hotel development, not just on the 7 Mile Beach Strip. We see the Mandarin Oriental getting the go-ahead there on Beach Bay. So that will obviously add to the room stock. But again, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So if you want to see stay-over tourism grow, and clearly we seem to be on a trajectory to make that happen, there are some trade-offs. And one of those will be expect more development, because you can invite the world to come here, but if you can't offer them a place to stay, then there's really no point. So we have to see that happening. Obviously, we have things like the Grand Hyatt there on the Pageant Beach site, which is not yet completed, but obviously when it is completed, it will add to that room stock. The Mandarin, as we mentioned before. But I anticipate we'll have to have a few more hotels if we want to make a significant impact and stay over. You were saying?
Yeah, this is again where I get on these environmentalists, and again I'm going to stress that this is primarily a bunch of new Caymanians, if you want to call them that have come to this country, made $1 million, and now they just want to relax and retire and not concerned about anyone else making a living. I'm going to stress that point up front. But the weird thing is, right, if you're going to go on the stay-over visitors, I'm trying to increase the number of stay-over visitors. But at the same time, in order to increase the number of stay-over visitors, you have to increase the amount of rooms. And as you increase the number of rooms, people are saying, there's too much rooms. We're looking like Miami. Where's the island?
Yep.
Aren't we at a loss here?
It certainly is a
challenge. Are we confused or what?
We are at cross purposes.
This is why I'm saying, isn't it better to kind of have one ship pull up that actually amounts to probably 8 hotels and it leaves at the end of the day?
Arguably.
Hey, anyway.
What do you know, eh?
We'll get on it another day. But again, I will just stress to people, you're not going to hear these people whining about the airport. No, of course not, because part of their retirement plan is to be able to take a vacation from France and Spain or wherever part of the world they want to zip off to, and they use the airport. No, God forbid if anything ever happens to that, then you might be having a different argument. But for now, this anti-cruise thing is not organic.
No.
Again, we'll talk about it some more, but it is not organic. Please don't fall victim to it, because it is not the case. People parading as if they care about you. And I heard an argument just this week, just a couple of days ago, which I'm going to bring up and discuss another day, but it's every argument that can be used. The poor people of Red Bay and Prospect getting stuck in the traffic because of cruise tours.
Wow.
Honestly, I have never seen anything like this. Now you know why they do not want to subject themselves to a proper discussion / debate.
Yeah.
because it makes absolutely no sense what you're saying. You know, I had a brother that used to talk about the lawyers. It was kind of, you know what the S word is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throw the S against the wall and just see what sticks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That is their approach to this whole issue of, let's see if we can combat cruise tourism. But either way, I want to say that I see that there's something in here about tariffs and talking about how it's going to impact Cayman. I saw that here in the compass.
Yes, no, I have it for us to touch on.
Oh, you got it?
I just want to get past the stayover side because
Okay, yeah, fine.
whilst we talk about stayover tourism, just very quickly to close out your point, as I always say, a hard no is not
Not an
conversation.
argument.
It's a viewpoint. So if the anti-cruise port folks will, to your point, pick on any excuse and look at any excuse to support their no vote, again, it just proves that a hard no, which is their position, no matter what you bring, is not a conversation. It's their position.
And what really bothers me is when I see Caymanians attaching and aligning themselves with this argument. But that I can understand. I understand some of the reasons why some of them are doing it. We have a lot of, well, let me be kind today. There's a lot of attachment, but I give the example again just on stayovers. You're going to say, get rid of cruises, get stayovers. But in order to get stayovers, you have to increase the amount of rooms.
Yes.
You increase the amount of rooms, you get large infrastructures that are being built in the island, on the beach.
Yes.
And at the same time, you'll have some of the same whiners talking about we look like another, what was it? Another town in the USA or Florida.
Yes, South Beach.
It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't win sometimes, really.
Yeah, confusing.
Well,
confusing group.
Again, we talk about the realities. Numbers don't lie. Finances are in the red. Financial services under pressure. Cruise tourism potentially sitting in the brink. Can we, as a jurisdiction, afford to lose any of our revenue sources right now against the backdrop of the growing list of demands that our citizens place on government, whether they want to park, whether they want wider roads so they can get reduced traffic? The list goes on and on. The list of demands don't end. It's just a question of how we're going to pay for those demands. And that is a question we should all be asking ourselves. But sticking with the good news.
And just so you know, on that same thing, you just reminded me of something.
Yes.
On that same thing, it appears so that everyone knows that the new Caymanian group / environmentalists, their group that they are supporting is the CCP. Should be absolutely 100% clear about that, by the way. Apparently, apparently enough is enough, but I thought 3 years was enough. But either way, you can continue now, Mr. Harris.
Yeah, no kidding.
I just thought I'd mention it.
We try so hard to get the good news out first. Speaking of stayover tourism, this time from the pages of the Caymanian Times, we see that the Cayman Islands welcomed 85,998 stayover visitors between January and February this year, up some 7.4% from the same period in 2024. February saw 44,589 stayover visitors arrive on our shores, representing an increase of 7% from the previous year. According to folks at the Department of Tourism, February numbers show that we are on pace for growth in 2025 and a strong Q1 for both visitation and the accompanying revenue that goes with it is expected. The United States continued to be the largest source of visitors to the Cayman Islands, with numbers increasing by 7.4% when compared to February last year. Leading this growth were visitors from the Northeast, which are up 18.5%, as well as visitors from the West Coast, up some 15.3% year over year. In the Northeast, this increase was fueled by strong air service in the New York and Boston routes. In February, JetBlue, of course, some will remember, increased its seat capacity as well as the number of flights from the Boston area, while Cayman Airways and United maintained their service from JFK and Newark. In the West, visitors from LA and Denver fueled the double-digit increases. So on the stayover side, 2025 is looking good. But again, we caution. We usually do begin to look good at the beginning of the year. We start to fall off towards March when obviously the slow season starts to kick in. And it stays that way, arguably, until the end of September, end of October, early November, when our high season kicks in. And, of course, the annual hurricane season goes away. So, there are ebbs and flows in stayover tourism and overall tourism. And to your point, the only thing that has remained constant and consistent have been steady, strong cruise numbers throughout the Caribbean, not necessarily for the Cayman Islands in the last year or two, and certainly not expected to get any better in 2025 in the absence of the necessary infrastructure. But there are opportunities. When stayover is quiet, cruise is high, and obviously that balances the books and carries us to the next season, if you will, in our tourism economic picture. More people need to spend more time thinking about the macro level, the bigger picture, and how it impacts all of our lives. Whether you're directly involved in tourism, whether you're directly involved in financial services, you can very easily see how both of these sectors benefit life here in the Cayman Islands on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So those are our top stories for the day. Coming up in just a little bit over 4 minutes, we will welcome our first guest and our only guest for today, our Tuesday guest, becoming a regular. I don't know what we're going to do when the election campaign season is over and we have to go back to Tuesdays without our regular face of Jordan Rivers. But who knows? Maybe, just maybe.
He might be a regular again.
He might be a regular again, but be MP Jordan Rivers at that time.
Hey, when you make it cross the river, don't forget us.
That's right. Don't forget us when you become a big man in politics. But I don't think he will. But it would be nice.
You mean you don't think he'll forget us?
I don't think he'll forget us.
Just thought I'd clarify that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And if he did, we won't let him forget us.
I'm the government. We're here to help.
We're here to help. Exactly. 745-2626. If you want to add a comment on whether it be the stayover growth, whether it be the challenges in tourism overall, stayover versus cruise, or of course you want to, issue some congratulations of your own to the 13 very lucky graduates that have added themselves to the honorable number, as they say,
Austin,
to the Cayman Islands Coast Guard. Now's your chance. Yes?
I'm going to switch from the good news.
That's okay. We got 3 minutes.
Well,
So,
very, very
fire
quick.
away.
Very, very quickly. I'm. How can I put it? I'm looking at the compass here online on my phone.
Oh, yes, tariffs. Is what you wanted to talk about.
No, not tariffs. This beautiful girl, Judy Ann Miles.
Oh, my God. What a tragic and horrific story.
Let's just be clear. First of all, to all of her friends and family, sympathy, condolences. But, I'm kind of really tired of this, right? I mean, this obviously brings back the whole Estella Scott situation again. Again, someone murdered. And I think, didn't they find her in the car as well, burnt as well?
Yes, that's what brings back those memories is this, this incident raises those memories of the late Estella Scott.
And see, again, we used to have a gallows. We had a rope hanging there waiting for someone to go on that rope.
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, probably the back of a rope on the back of a truck is probably more appropriate. But, again, the Liberals have removed that. Apparently no death sentence. But really, at the end of the day, whether it be the murders of Estella Scott or whether it's this situation here, homegrown, organic, or other, or imported, are you really going to tell me that that's what it's supposed to be? You sit in prison and we feed you for the rest of your life?
Pardon me? Sorry, I missed that.
Apparently, you're supposed to murder, and then our job is to just put you in prison so we can feed you for the rest of your life.
Well, until they bring back the death penalty.
Yeah, which is precisely what I'm saying. I think at the end of the day, we need to look at that. If we want to have, if those people who care about the country so much, maybe we can have a referendum on that.
Yeah.
Because something clearly has to be done. I mean, how many times does this has to keep happening?
Mm-hmm.
What is really the disincentive?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The idea of just saying, and maybe I'm the only radical in the room. I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
I won't let you be.
Yeah, let me be.
No.
I mean, I just really want you to bring it down.
Sure.
You have a son. I have 3 daughters, but just shot in the head, put in a car, burnt, whatever it is.
Horrible.
Is that really justice?
Horrible.
Is that really justice? No. At the end of the day,
bringing these culprits to justice.
Eye for an eye, life for life, I say. This is just ridiculous. I knew this girl for a very long time. Wonderful person.
Yes.
I just think it's
Obviously, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the family who are obviously much closely connected to this loss. We'll talk a bit more about it
another
the
day,
days to come this week. But we do have to pause, take a short commercial break. But keep it locked. There's more Straight Talk still to come on Bobo FM.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
This is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. Hello. A roof has collapsed at a music venue in the Dominican Republic, killing at least 58 people. More than 150 others were injured. The accident happened during a concert by the veteran Dominican singer Ruby Perez at the Jet Set Club in the capital, Santo Domingo. Vanessa Espaillat is an emergency psychologist who's been assisting the victims' families at the scene.
We are there, the emergency psychologists, to help families, to help the people that are there without knowing what is happening to their families, if they are still in the debris and waiting for the rescue. And really we are there to support, to help, and to give information.
Tuesday's rally on the US stock markets has stalled after the Trump administration made clear that a 104% tariff on goods imported from China would go ahead on Wednesday. After 3 days of losses, Wall Street stocks had opened buoyantly as traders embraced talk of potential trade deals with Japan and South Korea. Erin Delmore is in New York.
To be clear here, it seems like the enemy to the markets is time. As we get closer to the president's deadline when he says tariffs will be implemented, including, he's made clear now, a 104% tariff on imports from China, we've actually seen the rally from earlier in the stock market weaken. Businesses are bracing for slower growth and for higher prices for consumers. And even before this tariff announcement, we had seen consumer sentiment, the way consumers feel about how well the economy's going, it dropping off just a little bit.
Donald Trump acknowledged that his tariffs strategy had been somewhat explosive, but he said his officials were talking with many countries wanting trade deals. In the meantime, he said America would benefit from the higher tariff revenues.
For those of you that want to know the tariffs, you've been hearing about tariffs, we're taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. $2 billion a day. And we're doing very well. And we're doing very well in making, I call them tailored deals, not off the rack. These are tailored, highly tailored deals.
Mr. Trump was speaking at a White House reception for invited coal miners. He announced measures to boost coal production and ordered the Justice Department to fight states trying to hold back growth in the industry. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has strongly condemned Israel's ongoing blockade of Gaza, saying it violates the Geneva Conventions. After more than a month of no food, fuel or medicines being allowed to enter the Strip, Mr Guterres said the floodgates of horror have reopened, leaving civilians in what he called an endless death loop. He rejected a new Israeli proposal to control aid deliveries in Gaza, saying the UN would play no part in such a scheme. You're listening to the World News from the BBC. Elon Musk has clashed angrily with another one of Donald Trump's senior advisors. The tech billionaire called Peter Navarro a moron and dumber than a sack of bricks. Mr Navarro had earlier said Mr Musk, who owns the Tesla company, wasn't a car manufacturer, just a car assembler who wanted cheap foreign parts for his products. At a briefing in Washington, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt made light of the exchange.
Look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue. And you guys should all be very grateful that we have the most transparent administration in history. And I think it also speaks to the president's willingness to hear from all sides.
It comes amid disagreements about President Trump's tariff policy. 3 American citizens who were jailed over a failed coup attempt in the Democratic Republic of Congo are now in US custody after their sentences were commuted. The deal to hand over the Americans was finalised at a time when negotiations are taking place between Washington and Kinshasa on security and mining. The public broadcaster in South Africa has apologised after the Afrikaans language news segment wasn't aired over the weekend. The Democratic Alliance Party, which is part of the governing coalition, had demanded an explanation from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. The management of SABC described it as a scheduling error. The reigning European football champions Real Madrid have been beaten 3-0 by Arsenal in the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final. Declan Rice scored 2 spectacular free kicks to help the London club take control ahead of the second leg in Spain. In Germany, Inter Milan scored in the 88th minute to beat Bayern Munich 2-1 and give the Italian club the advantage in their last 8 match. BBC World News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook with your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And, of course, we are thrilled to welcome what has become a fantastic part of the week we get to look forward to every Tuesday. Mr. Jordan Rivers, candidate for the Cayman Islands National Party in the constituency of West Bay North. He's our guest in studios. Jordan, welcome to Super Tuesday.
I like it.
You like it, don't you? I'm telling you,
Great
man.
to be back live and direct.
We were just discussing that. We were just saying to ourselves, boy, it'd be strange after the election, when we don't have Jordan every Tuesday. But then he reminded me, but maybe we will. Maybe he'll be elected, and then he'll be a part of our regular Super Tuesday.
And so we just simply said that when you cross the river, don't forget us.
Don't forget.
No.
But we want to use Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday could be all yours, Mr. Rivers.
Like that.
Successful at the polls.
Like that. I love it. I look forward to it.
Truthful Tuesday.
Truthful Tuesday.
We're going with that one.
One of those. Well, Jordan, welcome back. I trust you had a good weekend. I know we have a lot we want to talk about, but obviously we follow your lead, and wherever you lead us, we shall do our best to have the conversation.
Well, I think we're going to start off where I did not get a chance to finish last week.
Yes, you were a bit rushed last week towards the end there. You were addressing at least one of your competitors, if you want to call it as such, in the West Bay North constituency, talking about references to the past Auditor General's report.
Yes.
The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. And it just goes to show you that no matter how much time we have in a day, there's more problems in Cayman than we got time for.
Yeah,
So-
true enough. True enough.
So I think I'll just start with that, and we'll just move on with the program at your lead, sir. So just for the listening audience, the reminder of this is the ex-minister accused of meddling in procurement. This was a CNS report done in 2015. That was done by the OAG's report. So that's the Office of the Auditor General. The Auditor General at that time was Alistair Swarbrick.
Yes.
So I'll just go from the top here since we have a little bit more time today. So the former Education Minister, Ralston Anglin, has been accused of interference in the procurement process and management of both the secondary and primary school projects during the UDP administration, in yet another damning report about government procurement and the problems of political interference and mismanagement by officials. Auditor General Alistair Swarbrick has pointed to a loss of some $25 million to the public purse, a lack of transparency, and a catalog of other problems that have plagued public projects. Criticizing procurement practices and the lack of transparency and raising concerns about government officials stonewalling his office. In the process of the audit, Swarbrick warned that once again taxpayers' money had been wasted due to a lack of proper management and inappropriate interference. Swarbrick said that the government needed to have a serious conversation about political interference and before it pressed ahead with any further development of the secondary schools to take on board his recommendations. So before I continue with the rest of this article here, I think it's obvious that we are now seeing another image of government mismanagement of financially, false auditing practices, late deliverables. And it's just amazing to see that this was a report from 10 years ago and we haven't changed. And I think the real serious issue with that is because the reason we don't see a difference even a decade later is because we keep on electing the same types of individuals. This is what I've been saying on the campaign trail, that you can have all the experience in the world, but when you go for a tertiary education, it does not teach you how to have good character. And so if we're looking to actually take this country in a new direction, we have to change our voting habits. We have to remove all of the problems that we are continuing to put back in office. And like they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a new result. I'll go on with this here now. Government has spent far more than it should have and got far less than it wanted when it originally decided to build the new high schools and additional classrooms at the primary schools, Swarbrick stated. The former Minister of Education from 2009 to 2013 was very involved in the management of the projects, including inappropriate direction around procurement. We found this involvement to be outside the laws in place for the management of public funds and obscured accountability for the cost overruns, conservatively estimated to be greater than $25 million. So they stated $25 million. That was a conservative number. They see that it's costed more. On the projects we reviewed, Swarbrick added, poor record and stonewalling from ministry officials also made the audit challenging, and no credible documentation was presented to support various decisions made during the course of the projects. The audit was delayed significantly by a lack of cooperation during the course of the audit, Swarbrick stated, noting that the audit began in January 2014. This increased the time it took to carry out the work and complete the report, as well as significantly increase the cost of the audit. So once again, I'm going to we're going to backtrack in history and then throw it back to the present again. We have seen once again that a lot of political interference in how the due process of these kinds of procurements has cost the country to lose more money. And we're wondering how we end up with what is going to be perceived as an $80 million deficit come 2026. And this is because this is the style of individuals that or the caliber of individuals that we choose to continue to elect. Just to add to this now, during my debate, I mentioned the transaction payments that every ministry has the ability to. So for those that don't know, if it's under $100,000, you don't have to go to a board for approval. This is why those TP slush funds are every politician's favorite little pocket for money. If we're talking about an abuse of power, and they also stated that it was outside the laws that they were allowed to use for this, so therefore you've broken the law in some capacity. That sounds pretty illegal to me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
This is where favoritism or what we would rather call cronyism takes place, where they'll give their friends, because there's no oversight, no accountability. This is why I think it's important for persons to understand that when I talk with them and I explain that we need to start being more accountable for the money that the government spends, because It's not government's money. It's the citizens of the Cayman Islands. This is your money they're spending. And if you don't take account for this, they're going to do exactly what they did 10 years ago in 2025, 2026, and beyond. And this is how they service a lot of their friends as well. These transactional payments are how they help their friends get very wealthy. You are getting cut out of the piece of the pie, and it's not that it's necessarily the foreign developers' fault. It's because of the type of individuals that we continue to elect in this country. And I think, yes, here we go. He's among the many issues that are detailed in the report. Swarbrick raised his concerns that the Legislative Assembly is still not receiving adequate information for appropriations and supplementary appropriations on major capital projects. He said that the Education Ministry failed to establish frameworks to ensure it managed the school projects efficiently and effectively to achieve value for money, delivering less than it promised at a far higher cost than planned. So just to give you an example here, now, if I remember correctly, I think the rough estimate of what they had for those two projects, if not all the projects, because they were talking about building 4 high schools at that time.
Yes.
Government can barely manage one project at a time, nonetheless having 4 different things go on. We're not very good when it comes to that level of multitasking. But I think it was to the tune of about $44 million back then. What we've seen now is that, and this is going to come from Wayne Panton himself, so I hope he's not too worried that I'm going to quote him here. But he was talking about when they were discussing the Cayman Brac High School, that they first brought it to his attention for $27 million. Then it jumped to $44 million. Now we're seeing that it's now effectively going north of $100 million. This is what I'm talking about when we talk about mismanagement of public funds. And he said that he thought it was a bit more reasonable when it was at 27, but when it jumped to that $44 million mark, how is it that we are talking about that being a reasonable project now at $44 million when the cost overruns back then exceeded that overall? So something's happening here. We're having a bit too much political meddling and a bit too much political favoritism. So if persons that are worried about how the education system is going, and we'll just use that as an example today, if we're going to talk about how persons are concerned about how the education system is going to look without the involvement of specific ministers, I think I covered that pretty adequately during my Chamber of Commerce debate. We have to see a world without ourselves in it. And if we keep on having education hog-tied to the change of ministers every 4 years, our children are going to continue to pay the cost of that. We need to have a lot more transparency and a lot more accountability, and that requires having a council, a board, or some sort of oversight committee that is filled with nothing but professionals in that field, i.e. educators. That way, education is no longer a political football in this country. The same way the environment shouldn't be, or anything else for that matter. If we want to see true accountability and true transparency in this country, we have to identify what are the staples or what are the standards of excellence in this country for very key ministries. And you can still have ministers for them. They're just there to take the information that they have been given from their respective departments or ministries, go to Parliament, and secure the adequate funding for them. It's really not that difficult in my eyes. You all are veterans to this, so you can guide me where I go wrong on this. Sure. But the simple thing is, we have wasted too much money in this country and not spent enough of it on the right projects. I've just given you a report from 10 years ago. This thing could actually fit in a report today. That's how crazy it is. So nothing has changed. And I need people to understand that things will continue to remain the same. You will continue to be hoodwinked. You will continue to be swindled. You will continue to be put as second place in this country if you continue to elect the same individuals that have proven to you that that's all they're thinking about. Foreigners do not come to this country and go into government. Only Caymanians do. So if you can point the finger at anybody you want, but at the end of the day, it is our own people that are throwing us in the back of the wagon and saying, survive. That's your choice. You're not allowed in first class. I'm sorry. This is not a comfortable topic for a lot of persons listening to this, but this is the facts. We can continue to say that it's all this foreign engagement or foreign investment that is pushing us to the bottom of the barrel. Realistically,
the Caymanian on Caymanian conversation. Yes,
it's like the same thing you would hear about, well, it's black on black crime or it's white on white crime. This is Caymanian on Caymanian crime. And we can no longer afford, not only we can continue, we can no longer afford as individuals to be hoodwinked by the same old, same old. The country is still going to survive. You have to decide if you want this country to go forward with you in it or not. And if you want to be a part of what's coming or the future that Cayman is going into, you have to actually elect leaders that want to see the best for you. not use you as a token to continue getting themselves richer by giving concessions to all the foreign friends, to all the special interests that serve exclusively their purpose. You need leaders that are willing to serve you. And I can tell you what we have seen and the iterations of politicians that we have seen over 25 years, there's a reason we have voted them out. And this does not just stand for me or for West Bay North. This is countrywide. I may have just used that as an example, but I am talking island-wide. We can no longer continue. Experience is one thing. I get it. We need a little bit of that. But we forget to understand that we have an entire civil service that once you get in there, they are going to guide you through every process, every step, because in order for a government to function, everyone needs to be on the same page. So if we're talking about experience, there's experience that you can get in 1 year, number one. Secondly, we have seen what experiences look like over 25 years, and I'm not a big fan of that kind of experience. That is why I'm here today, and I'm going to continue to be here well past election, no matter what the outcome is. I'm here now, and I'm going to continue to have my voice heard. I'm going to continue to push for the best interests of the Caymanian people and the Caymanian citizens, because it's about time now that we actually have a seat at our table, no longer just serving the ice water to the guests that has come here.
Yes, indeed. I think you make a number of valuable points, and just listening to you talk or ask the question, what have we learned, takes me back to a conversation my colleague and I were having prior to the beginning of today's show. You know, of course, we were talking about it in different terms. What have we learned since COVID?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what have we learned since Ivan? What mistakes have we made then that we, can perhaps not make in the future? I think it's a very careful and necessary analysis. So I think you're right on track. I would have to go back into the records to look into it, but you're referencing, of course, an Auditor General report from 2015, so 10 years ago. I can tell you there have been changes to the procurement legislation and requirements that seek to separate the political arm or the political influence from major decisions. I don't know whether that came as a direct correlation to that event, but to your point, it does seem to happen quite frequently. You ask about, the development of a separate council for education. Ironically enough, there is one of those as well. It's called the Education Council, that is separate and apart from the Ministry of Education and the Department of Education. But like all things, they're answerable and directed by Cabinet. And again, that's necessary because imagine you're the Minister of Education. Whether it works or it doesn't, you're going to get the blame.
Yep.
So you should have a degree of control at the policy level so you can direct things, to make improvements. But to your point, we have laws that also, ring fence you so that you don't overstep that authority. And of course, you point to that in the Auditor General report. So I thank you for making it, Ellio.
Yeah, I just wanted, and I think it's an excellent point, Austin. I just wanted to underscore that as well. I think that clearly from a ministerial standpoint, you want to make sure that you can maintain the power insofar as policy. Like, let's just look at some of this radicalism that's going on, where we can't figure out now we're trying to convince our boys that they're girls and girls that they're boys. You can clearly see, I feel confident that you as a minister, the character that I think that you are, would sit and say, I'm not sure if I agree with all of this. And not that I'm suggesting that you're saying otherwise, but clearly you have to maintain the authority to be able to set the direction in where you want the education system to go. And having, obviously, the proper checks and balances. I would like to think that you want to make sure that you're actually going to do that. And I like the point that you're making about the character, because I think that's really where it's important. You can talk about experience, but if you have experience and you don't have the right character, that's when you're going to get up and do the wrong.
Yep.
And I think that's why it's so important to look historically at a person, whether it's you, your competitors, or otherwise, and look at their resume and see what it is that their resume shows you. Because chances are, they say the lepers, won't change the spots.
That's correct.
So I think the character is absolutely important, but I want to nail home that point. I am definitely not one.
Yes.
I'm suggesting otherwise, but I'm definitely not one in terms of removing too much power from your parliament, removing too much power from your ministers, because I think it is important that you get the right character and that you allow that person to be able to lead with the proper checks and balances. I think we're largely in agreement there.
No, indeed. Where we're also in agreement, and again, we talked about this yesterday, it is the cost overruns that are related to capital projects. Certainly hasn't changed in the last 10 years. And if we don't do something about it soon, it's not going to change in the next 20 years. But, we ask the question, why is it when government proposes a project, everything becomes so much more expensive, and we throw around the figure of $1 million so loosely? It's going to cost at least $1 million. Everything costs $1 million these days.
It's not my money, that's why.
Exactly. But you see, that's the thing, though. It's not my money. Government is not a for-profit organization, so any money it has, it belongs to the taxpayers.
Exactly.
Because it came from the taxpayers.
Exactly.
And when we, fall short on revenues to the country, where does government fall back to? Increased taxes.
Exactly.
Who pays for that?
The people.
That's
the people.
right. So it's our money, very much so.
What I would say is that with the GDP that we have and the level of intelligence we have here at home, if we elected people that spent half the time doing something good compared to the amount of time they think of how they're going to siphon money out of the government to their personal pockets, Cayman would be an absolute unit of a nation, right? But it just shows you, it says, and I've always said this, we got a lot of people with a lot of good sense, a lot of good dirty sense. That's the issue here now. So we need to put people in that have genuine good sense, not good dirty sense.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going to stick on that. Like, I'm not backing down from that statement whatsoever, because I've been around this long enough to understand this. And I'll repeat it for everyone again.
Sorry, which statement are you not backing down from?
That we have a lot of good people with good dirty sense. So that we elect that specifically.
Yeah.
Right? But if we elect the people who put half the effort into doing something that was right for this country as they put into trying siphoning money out of this country, we'd be in a much better situation. But we just unfortunately have not elected persons, or rather they've presented themselves to be those kinds of persons. But when we have left them there to their own devices to govern on our behalf, they have shown us exactly who they really are. And we had this conversation from the last time I was here. This is just what it is. They have, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. And this is where we're sitting here now. A lot of people have had 12 years, 20 years, 15 years, 30 years, 40 years. I can go on and on and on to show you who they are. The choice is yours. You cannot sit here and complain about the status to which you live in if you continue to subscribe to the situation that is causing that. It's a simple action and reaction. And if you want to change the outcome, you have to operate differently. It's as simple as that. Look, guys, there's a lot of hardworking people in this country. But guess what? They took a risk, whether it was to start their own business, to go off and receive further education, to go and work for a new company when they had a pretty decent salary here. Like, everything we do in life is a risk. Just me getting up in the morning and going out and driving my vehicle is a risk. A dump truck could come by and take me out. Anything could happen. Living through life every single day is not guaranteed. So when I hear that we are trying to control the flow and control of the future we want to go into, that's one thing that we have no control over. What we do have control over is looking and analyzing and assessing the people that are coming forward that want to represent us. And guess what? We're not always going to get it right. That's okay. But when you see that it's not working out, you replace them with somebody else, because that is the risk that we take every day. This whole rhetoric of, I'd rather stick with the devil I know than the devil I don't. Look at what the devil you know has gotten you. How much worse do you think it's really going to get? I'm not saying that the new options are going to be any better. What I'm saying is we know what our old options have looked like. And I think it's time that we unclog and unjam this system here.
All right. Well, a listener sent a bit of a meme saying, no matter how big a hammer you use, you can't pound common sense into stupid people. So there you go. I guess making your reference about, again, whilst we do have, and thank God we still do have people with good old-fashioned common sense, we do have a whole lot of stupid people as well. Ellio?
Well,
minute 30 seconds remaining.
30 seconds? Gee, I don't know what to say.
1 minute and 30 seconds.
I'll just 1 minute and 30 seconds. I will again support your point.
Right?
There's a lot of times persons will say, oh, the individual lacks experience. I think is in large part if you have someone that's willing to roll up their sleeves, because there are things that you need to learn. I don't care if you're just joining a company and you have to mop the floor.
Yeah.
You still got to find out where the closet is, where they have the mop. And this is a very simple job. But you still have things to learn. And as long as someone's willing to roll up their sleeve and learn those things and work that extra overtime, they can do it. Bear in mind that anyone that got into any job, including Parliament, was new at some point.
Correct.
And didn't have the experience. That in itself is not the reason to not vote for someone. I think you have to look fundamental at the character of the person And that also looks at their resume in terms of how hard they're willing to work, etc. Now, I think when you can have a candidate that's running and saying, look at my resume, look at what I have accomplished over the last 4 years or the last 8 years, well, then that equally is worth looking at.
Indeed.
But if you're going to show a naughty track record, well, that's a horse of a different color.
Well, 28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time in studios, and Jordan Rivers is our guest. We have to pause, take a short commercial break, but keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come on this Super Truthful Tuesday with Jordan Rivers on Bobo FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Insurance matters. It gives you the confidence to live life as you should, knowing you're protected. As a leading local insurer for over 25 years, Island Heritage has a consistent track record of providing best-in-class customer service with quick and efficient claims processing. This means insurance you can rely on when you need it most. The Island Heritage Way. Visit us online at islandheritageinsurance.com today to learn more about our home, contents, motor, marine, and commercial insurance products. Go on and live your life. With Island Heritage, you can.
Looking for TVs, electronics, sound systems, speakers, gaming consoles, games, and smart home gadgets? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for housewares, small appliances, fans, mini fridges, and cooling? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for baby supplies, toys and games, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, and auto supplies? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for quality produce, grass-fed meats, and groceries? You guessed it. Shop Cost You Less.
Cost You Less is your destination for everything you need on Island. Cost You Less. Everyday low prices on items that matter to you.
Drinking water is vital to our health. At Cayman Water, we use reverse osmosis desalination to ensure safe drinking water. A semi-permeable membrane allows fresh water to pass through, blocking out contaminants. Then, we finish with a post-treatment process and conduct frequent extensive testing to ensure that you get healthy drinking water with an average pH of 7. Not only is water out of your tap safe to drink, it's approximately 400 times less expensive than bottled water. Help to reduce plastics and save our planet. Cayman Water cares. Learn more at caymanwater.com.
Hello, pet parents. We're Cayman Vets, Cayman's most advanced veterinary clinic providing quality care and services. We are committed to being your pet's advocate and friend, offering a lifetime of care. From vaccinations and wellness checks to more advanced surgical procedures, complicated medical concerns, and emergency care on demand. For more information about us or to get in touch, please visit caymanvets.com. Cayman Vets, where compassion meets excellence.
When it comes to cooking for my family, I turn to Kirk Market for all our nutritional needs. Whether whipping up a quick stir fry with lean CAB choice beef or preparing a healthy weekend dinner with fresh local snapper, Kirk Market always has exactly what I need. At Kirk Market, I find premium proteins that keep my family healthy, energetic, and always coming back for seconds. Visit Kirk Market today. Bring home the quality and freshness your family deserves. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and experience a world of choice.
It's trivia every Wednesday from 7 o'clock at Sandbar on the Georgetown waterfront. Your chance to win some fantastic prizes in our free-to-enter Trivia Madness. Great offers on beer buckets, margaritas, and a delicious menu served throughout the evening. Grab your pals and get along to Sandbar every Wednesday from 7 o'clock for the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Are we ready?
Yes, Marty!
Then let's do this. Trivia, Sandbar, 7 o'clock, Wednesday. See you there.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, Cayman, to Super Tuesday with Jordan Rivers here on Straight Talk on Bobo 103.1 FM The phone lines are open, 745-2626. If you hail from the West Bay North constituency, now is your opportunity to have a little one-on-one discussion with your would-be candidate for the upcoming general election, Jordan Rivers. Likewise, of course, if you want to spend your dime, but you want to use our otherwise 1-800 number, it's our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. And from there, you can either share a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message, as some have elected to do already, and we will happily share your message on the air. Transitioning away from cost overruns and questionable otherwise elected leadership of the past, on something that is very clearly a growing and relevant concern up to just this month, crime and, well, hopefully soon to come, punishment. Jordan Rivers, your thoughts as it relates to crime, starting, of course, whether it be in your constituency or the wider Cayman Islands.
Just begging your indulgence before you jump into it. Someone wanting, I think, to give you another compliment.
Okay.
And that is unclog and unjam the system. Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
I like it.
Yes.
I guess that's one of those booms.
That's what, where is it? Come on.
Wait,
Come
hold
on. That's one of those moments.
Hold on.
There you go.
All right. So there you go. Someone wanted to make sure and give you that compliment. On to the crime issue. Is that what you're bringing up, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, it's crime and soon to be punishment.
Yeah. Let's go.
So before we get into it, because always this is a much heavier topic just based on what we have seen transpire in the past few weeks. But on behalf of myself, my family, and obviously as an extension of the Cayman Islands National Party, we want to extend our deepest condolences to the family of Miss Judy Ann Miles, her 2 children, her husband, her family, her friends, and her colleagues. Because I do know of a few persons that work there in SEMA that are very taken aback by what's happened. This is almost akin to what we saw several years ago with Estella. It almost falls. It almost does. It falls very much in the same vein, and I think that is going to hit just as hard, if not as harder, as that situation there. And it's a shame that we find ourselves in a time frame where such atrocities have become almost commonplace here. Cayman's never been that kind of country, and it's just unfortunate that we find ourselves that in the 21st century. But speaking on that to lead into this, that we have to have stiffer penalties for persons that take another individual's life. It's just as simple as that. Now we have the Shemaiah Grant order. Granted, that fell from a different circumstance. So you familiar with it?
I am not.
Okay, so Shemaiah Grant was actually a very good friend of mine back in West Bay. He was the one that was killed by supposed drunk driving right there when you're heading towards Tortuga by Turtle Farm.
Yes.
On that bad shoulder there.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was killed.
That accident black spot we used to call it once upon a time.
Yes, and it had been that way for many years. So basically, any person that is found guilty of that not only serves the jail time, they actually have to pay if they leave behind children and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's almost like how you would have alimony in a sense. They got to pay to the development of that child and secure restitution for the loss of that parent. So I think we need to actually revamp our laws that anything that causes the life of another individual in any circumstances, not just drunk driving, but restitution should be in order for things like that. And I think that's one of the things that we can look into, not only with more severe penalties, but ensuring that restitution is a mandatory order on that. Because when you rob a child of a parent, you really run a strong risk of running that child of a future, of ruining that child's future. That in any situation, the loss of someone that is a mentor and a parent to you, that messes you up in a very different psychological format, that you never know what the outcome of the person that is affected by that. You know, you could put it to a very similarly to that a person that was a drunkard that had 2 children, one became a successful business person, the other one became a drunkard themselves. But the common factor is they blame their parent for drinking. Right. So it's just we gotta have an element of that Cayman community kind of back inside of our laws again. So
you're a strong supporter for stiffer penalties for certain offenses?
Of course.
Yeah.
Like I tell you, it's like the old adage is you do the crime, you do the time, right? We have in Cayman, we tend to kind of follow more of a guilty until proven innocent format, whereas in the U.S. it's innocent until proven guilty, which we can argue the semantics on that here or there. But I think that what we need to ensure that if you are proven that you're not guilty, there needs to be an actual washing and a scrubbing of that individuals to ensure that they're no longer hindered. Because we have a very nasty habit of blackballing individuals or giving them a black eye just for being in the situation. We fail to understand that just because we're a small nation, you can find yourself in any kind of situation just by being in the immediate area. But if you are found guilty of said crime, whether you want to appeal it or not, it's neither here nor there. But there should be some genuine accountability. If we're going to even talk about the crime and criminality in the country, as well as one of the other topics there, it's funny because they're three separate topics, but they all go hand in hand very well. We're talking about crime and criminality, police engagement, and a sexual predator registry, right? These things are all have to do with law enforcement, with security of our community. And these are not light topics. But realistically, the conversations that we need to have now in this modern time, nothing's light. We have, as I said a couple weeks ago, we have spent most of our lives sweeping all the nasty little things under a rug, hoping that it goes away. But the fact of the matter is that rug is so full now, it's a Mount Trashmore Jr. It's about time now we unclog the system to what they had commented I said earlier. But this is how we go about unclogging it, is sitting down like mature adults and having this conversation and dissecting what are the problems. Yes, some of this stuff is touchy topics. I get it. I got to deal with that stuff all the time. My first time on your show, we had a very sensitive matter, and then it followed subsequently immediately after again. But that can't be the bog or the mire that we fall into and get stuck there and go into fetal position, especially if we're talking about who we're going to be electing as leaders of the country. Those have to be our brave hearts. Those have to be the ones that you throw the biggest stones at in order to ensure that they can actually handle the situations that are coming at them. And I don't think I would have put myself forward if I did not feel as though I was capable of having these conversations, whether the persons I was talking to or not wanted to have them. But these are important. We need, if any first world country, one of the biggest priorities has to be the safety, security, and well-being of its women, children, and most vulnerable. If you don't have that, what other kind of societal structure do you have? Are you saying that the men are just going to control everything? And don't get me wrong, I'm not necessarily a steadfast believer in that whole toxic masculinity thing. Men have always had a historical role in leading and protecting and defending, but you need strong men to take away bad men. As simple as that. And we have had our trace elements in history where strong women have taken away bad men, right? But as our societal structure is formulated for thousands of years and centuries, and as far back as humankind has gone, men have always had a role, and that is provider and protector. Women are nurturers, and they raise the children.
Slaying dragons.
Feeding
bad guys.
Right? But now we live in the 21st century where everyone can do that. Right? This is what society has brought, a level playing field. We still have our innate desire to kind of control things in a certain capacity. But at the end of the day, it is everyone's responsibility to ensure that this country is as safe, prosperous, and secure as it physically can be. So just to tack on with this here now is that we need to actually implement a sexual predator registry in Cayman, because even though we are a small country that lives in close proximity to one another, we won't be able to say, all right, well, you can't go within 100 feet of the school or whatever it is. Like, we have to be realistic about how we're scaling down the laws that are of international value, right? But
and do you believe the sexual registry should be a public registry as well?
Of course. So you have two options, right? You have the UK one, which is a bit more reserved. Only law enforcement can access that. Yeah, I get the reasons why, but that system automatically would be a bit more plug and play for us, just because we fall under English common law. But I think that we need to look at creating a cross section of that, or a hybridization of that law with the U.S. law, because we are a small community. Whether you want to say, well, I think only officials should access that, you're going to know something. It's as simple as that. So let's not beat around the bush like we've been beating around for the past 60 plus years. Let's just call a spade and move on. It's as simple as that. We're going to make that thing. We need to make it public. We need to make people have access to it, because this goes to the safety, accountability, and transparency that I've been beating this horse the entire, no pun intended, but this entire campaign. People need to be more aware of what's happening, and it is our job as persons that not only choose to seek public office, but having adequate and responsible law enforcement, need to allow the community to make sound and concise decisions with all the adequate information. That's just my personal stance on that. And I don't care who it offends, because it's going to offend some people. There's a reason it hasn't been put into law yet.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest about that. I'm sorry, guy or woman or whoever.
Well, there are two trains of thought in terms of why it hasn't been implemented. On the one hand, and I'll be honest, I share this view that by making it public puts what we call it vigilante justice in the hands of individuals. You know, if I know, and listen, we're all parents here. You know, Ellio's got 3 daughters, I've got 1 son. You know, I don't even want to think about harm coming their way because I might become a different person.
Yeah.
And I worry that that type of registry being in the public domain may make others move to violence. So that's the one concern. And the other is, as demonstrated by the courts and the whole journalistic reporting of sexual offenses against children. You know, they won't name the defendant or the victim, but they won't name the defendant, the defendant, the one that's being charged with the offense, for fear of identifying the victim, either by family or the individual child itself, because we are in a small community. I wonder if you've given any thought to either of these concerns and how you would get around it if elected.
I would like to ask one qualifying question as well. I mean, when we talk about, what is it called, sex offender registry. Now, another discussion would be, do we split that in 2 parts? Is it a case of one of those registries is one against offenses against minors, and the other one is just an offense against a male or a female, or is it just kind of one general registry?
So personally, how I've been thinking about this, and I like that train of thought that you're on. That I think that's a very important differentiation. I have always looked at this in the sense of more so as a situation of against minors.
Right. Okay.
That's what we need.
That's sorry to cut you, but that's what I was inferring from you. And if that we're on the same train, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So no, there definitely needs to be a segregation when it comes to how we handle that. Because, listen, I'm not trying to downplay the crime at all, but there is a stark difference between an adult on an adult crime like that and an adult on a minor.
Correct.
You have ruined that child.
1,000%.
Right? And they need to be protected. They need to have adequate security, adequate protection, adequate counseling for that. An adult is able to, and this is going to sound in a very interesting way. By the time most people have become adults, they have already gone through a certain level of natural trauma that life brings on. They're able to have what we would classify as coping mechanisms. And I'm not a professional here.
Yeah, no.
I'm just telling you what my lived experience is.
Sure.
Right? We have an ability to shove things into the side or compartmentalize and focus directly on tasks.
Right.
Children have not developed those skills. They're still young. They're still unblossomed. Right? For you to go and destroy that entity or try your best to do that, that is a crime of not only morality, but of the highest and most heinous of orders. And that needs to be dealt with as such. We can't beat around the bush on that. I'm sorry, man. Like, it's just, and I'm sorry, not sorry, but
we know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just, that has to be dealt with, because that goes back to everything I just said moments ago. If we cannot protect our women, children, and the most vulnerable, what does that say about us as a people and a society? And I know that every person in this room knows exactly what the old Cayman was like, the kind of people that have led this country, the kind of people that have gone off to go across to the world and work and bring Cayman's name and reputation to the world. For us to, that's just an indictment on us as a people if we refuse to address this as a nation. So that we really need to take a hard and serious look at the direction that we want to move with for the remainder of 2025, because it's blowing by right now.
Yeah, I just want to support you on that. I think, first of all, sexual offenses against anyone is not right, but totally different category when you're talking about children, in my mind. Yeah. This is, I think anyone in their reasonable mind should say, if you've reached a state that you're going at 2-year-old, 3 years old, like I think you should. We don't need to tell you. You should know you have a problem.
Yeah.
And you have to really deal with it in a completely different way.
Indeed. But in full transparency, if elected, Jordan Rivers will push for a public sexual offenders registry.
Out the gate.
All right.
Out the gate, man. Out the gate.
Okay, fantastic. Well, again, I think that comment will certainly satisfy a wide number in the population. It may worry some, but I think to Ellio's point, in the broader interest, it certainly would serve the greater interest.
Yeah, well, as you just said, in the broader interest, we're here to serve all of the people, not just the minority or the special interest. We need to start legislating that way as well, too. We can talk about laws that have been created for convenience of individuals that had other business practices outside of where their time as an elected official, or any person that just had enough money that said, hey, maybe you should swap from leasehold to freehold so I can get my multi-million-dollar complex all to myself, you know?
So in a general way, Jordan, how do you feel about just a general policing in the communities? How do you think that's taking place? I mean, maybe your specific reference to West Bay North.
Well,
starting there.
Yeah, well, West Bay has always been referred to as just Iraq, Afghanistan, West Afghanistan, you know, capital,
Republic.
The Republic, the murder capital of Cayman. Like, we got all these names in it.
Right.
People in West Bay know the difference. That's an out of district statement. The only one we've actually ever taken on was the Republic, because we know we operate under different laws. Or different rules, I should say.
Well, for what it's worth, America's a republic, so I don't know. Maybe it's a compliment. Who knows?
I'll take it as one. I ain't taking it as anything less. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I will give the RCIPS credit where credit is due, and the oversight.
That's great.
Of that. They have definitely amped up their policing, but it's more so specifically locked to when we have Christmas time or New Year's, or they kind of get an inkling of a vibe that this Friday is going to be hotter than next. So they do amp it up in those capacities. Now, just to give circumstance around my statements going forth, I am fully aware that it's either 368 or 386 police officers for a population of 86,000. Now, if we're doing quick math, and just for those that can either see me but can't hear, or sorry, can hear me but can't see me, I'm not no mathematician. I've just done this number a couple times. That roughly estimates to about 222 persons per officer. Now, I don't know about any of you. I can maybe take on 10 small kids with myself, but not 222 full-grown adults. So there needs to be a certain level of control, and there is no standard or visible onlook to see that you have just as many law enforcement as you have persons or citizens living in that country. So there's always going to be a deficit of. But having that low number, we need to really bolster the ranks of the RCIPS. And when I say that, I mean like yesteryear. We are dwindling on those numbers. We also need to have I think that we need to implement an adequate and global standardized police academy here for actual training. Now, I'm not saying that we need to have persons that are going to be physical therapists by any means, or mental therapists at all. But they need to be able to walk into almost any situation and know roughly how to handle that. Because what we've seen over times is that they prefer to use force more so than actually using what is needed. You can't go to an individual that's suffering from a mental breakdown and say, get on the ground or I'm going to tase you. It just doesn't work. Thank God we haven't had any shootings off of that because of the nation that we live in. But at the end of the day, how long before we get to that stage? We have a firearms response unit. If there's any kind of misinformation saying that, oh, I believe they had a gun, they're quickly going to jump on that, and you may lose a life for that. When the simple fact of the matter is, it would have just took a little bit of TLC and a little bit of disarming, both physically and verbally, to get that person in a controlled and calm state.
Right.
We have not done an adequate job when it comes to how we're handling each kind of case or a case-by-case basis. And I think that if we are going to have, as Franz himself would say, a world-class civil service, because let's not kid ourselves, they're part of the civil service as well too, right? We have to look at these avenues of how we're going to actually enhance the product or the real deliverables that we're giving back to the community. I forget off the top of my head what it is that the police's logo is. I think it's like, we listen, we care, we act, or something to that effect.
Sounds about right.
Right? It's roughly in that ballpark, right? I don't feel that as a citizen, and I'm not a criminal by any means. Like, I got a lot of friends that may not necessarily dabble in the right things in their life, but who doesn't know somebody like that in Cayman?
Right.
It's a small place. But just as a person that lives in a district that actually deals with a lot of crime and criminality and has a higher, above average murder rate, I don't feel like I can trust the police. It's just as simple as that. I do not feel that the police do an adequate job on the community level. We have created a community officer guideline, and that young lady does a good job. She goes around, but she tends, from what I understand, She deals more with the elderly or the more locked-in persons, which is fine. But crime does not stop after Friday at 5. It just doesn't. It really doesn't. I had a meeting last week, and I jokingly said, you think crime is going to wait on me to get down from this podium to kick back up again? And lo and behold, we had our national bird flying around with the spotlights on in West Bay. I said, wow, what are the odds of this, right?
Perfect timing.
Yeah, you can't make it up. It's just how it is.
No, indeed.
But this is the thing. So we need to have a lot more engagement from the officers. We need to have a lot more local officers, people that actually understand what the communities require, what they need. Community policing starts right there in the community. It doesn't start from law enforcement. They're responders.
Yeah.
They can't always be ahead of the curve. They can, on some instances. They choose not to.
Right.
But realistically, if the community felt safe, you'd be getting these little tips left, right, and center before anything actually ever took place.
Indeed.
Time check.
With just a little bit under 5 minutes remaining, just to recap, obviously, if elected, Jordan Rivers stands for stiffer penalties, a push for a public sexual offenders registry, and you just heard it there.
Specifically for minors. Yeah.
Specifically for minors. Thank you for that correction, Ellio. And a call for broader police engagement at a community level. I think all three very important areas that are certainly laudable from your standpoint. Before taking closing comments, I also know when you talk about police engagement, specifically with young offenders or young people, your party is hosting a young person's social event on Thursday. Is that correct?
Wow, time has flown. Yes. So we're having a youth social at the Hive on the 10th of April at 6 p.m. It's open to the public, but we're specifically looking for ages 18 to 35.
Okay.
This is the next generation, guys. We need them to understand that they play a lot more of an active role in your community and your country, because no matter what, like we've seen that this debt is going to look like, we're going to be the ones to inherit it.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, we need to have a lot more of an active role. But come out, meet the other Cayman Islands National Party members, have some good dialogue, bring your problems, here are solutions, or bring your questions, here are solutions. We're there for that.
And again, that event is on Thursday, April 10th from 6:30 to 9 p.m. at the Hive. So if you're between the ages of 18 and 35, the Cayman Islands National Party wants to hear from you. 55 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time. 3 minutes remaining in our time together.
Jeez.
Jordan Rivers, an opportunity for some closing remarks.
But just before you jump to the closing remarks, you can add this. And I think, first of all, for what it's worth, the amount of persons contacting us here on the program seems to be suggesting, Jordan, that they look past any attacks about an inexperience that somebody may want to claim in relation to yourself. I think most people seem to admire your level of articulation.
Yeah.
And appreciate that behind that articulation is an intelligent mind. And I think they also see you as a good source of strength. My question to ask you in terms of your closing comments is because I think to be a good representative, you've got to be able to have that level of humility. You have to be strong enough to push for what you want, but humble enough to listen to other persons, because nobody knows everything.
Correct.
And knowing that you're going to be able to sit and really deliberate on these things before you make a decision. So in your closing remarks, if you could just address it, are people going to be able to see that from Jordan if and when you're elected?
100%, because I would not be getting into this, I'm going to call it a game, but this business, if I did not feel as though I was capable of having deliverables. And I'm not a pie in the sky kind of guy. I deal with livestock. That's what I've grown up dealing with. And you need to have a very measured approach as to how you address them, because they're not going to tell you what's wrong. You have to be able to look behind and look further past just the tip of your nose in order to address things like that. So life is, up until this point, has guided me in a pathway that has allowed me to actually look and analyze and deliver on what is reasonable. We can always put things and plan things for the future, but I'm here to enforce what is actually deliverable in a 4-year term with preparation for 8, 10, 12 going onwards. Before we close out, you all can reach me at, this is my email, jordan.rivers@nationalparty.ky. Jordan Rivers for West Bay North is the Facebook. The IG is jordanrivers.wbn. That's jordanrivers.wbn. The WhatsApp channel is Jordan Rivers for WBN. You can reach me at 938-8668. That number again is 938-8668. The party's website is nationalparty.ky, and you can find everything you need from then. Ladies and gentlemen that's been listening, understand, I'm here for you. I'm here for the next generation. I'm here for those that have come before us and those that will come. But in order for us to succeed as a country, we have to understand that it comes a time and place that we have to move forward as a nation. And that time is now. The persons that have put us in this situation, at minimum 25 years, will not and cannot be the same persons to take us out of these problems. We need young, new, innovative, driven persons. We need the Cayman Islands National Party, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, the persons that have put us in this mess cannot be the persons to take us out. They will not. They know the system, and they'll continue to manipulate it at our expense. Thank you guys for your time today.
Thank you very much as well. Your candidate for West Bay North, representing the Cayman National Party, Jordan Rivers. You'll get another opportunity to hear from Jordan live here on Straight Talk next week, Tuesday, the 15th of April. So mark it in your calendars. We're going to pause, take a short commercial break, but there'll still be more Straight Talk still to come.
Bobo.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
This is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. Hello. Rescue workers in the Dominican Republic say 66 people are now confirmed to have died when a roof collapsed at a concert. Leonardo Rocha reports.
The accident happened during a concert by the veteran Dominican singer Ruby Perez at the Jet Set Club in the capital, Santo Domingo. The singer's fate is unclear. Those who were inside the club said it all happened suddenly and it felt like an earthquake. Among those who died were one of the band's musicians, a provincial governor, and a former baseball star, Octavio Dotel. He played in the U.S. Major League Baseball for over a decade and won the World Series in 2011.
Tuesday's rally on the US stock markets has stalled after the Trump administration made clear that a 104% tariff on goods imported from China would go ahead on Wednesday. After 3 days of losses, Wall Street stocks had opened buoyantly as traders embraced talk of potential trade deals with Japan and South Korea. But later, the White House press secretary said President Trump had decided to press ahead with the new tariffs in the face of warnings from China that it would retaliate. Here's John Sudworth.
Here we are, just hours away from this swingeing tariff being applied between the world's 2 biggest trading economies. No wonder the markets are nervous. And we saw it very clearly today. A little bit of a rally this morning in the hope that some of these comments from administration officials about the possibility of being able to negotiate on this, that the tariffs may come down, all that fell away.
Donald Trump acknowledged that his tariffs strategy had been somewhat explosive, but he said his officials were talking with many countries wanting trade deals. In the meantime, he said America would benefit from the higher tariff revenues.
For those of you that want to know the tariffs, you've been hearing about tariffs, we're taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. $2 billion a day. And we're doing very well. And we're doing very well in making, I call them tailored deals, not off the rack. These are tailored, highly tailored deals.
Mr. Trump was speaking at a White House reception for invited coal miners. He announced measures to boost coal production and ordered the Justice Department to fight states trying to hold back growth in the industry. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has strongly condemned Israel's ongoing blockade of Gaza, saying it violates the Geneva Conventions. After more than a month of no food, fuel or medicines being allowed to enter the Strip, Mr. Guterres said the floodgates of horror have reopened, leaving civilians in what he called an endless death loop. He rejected a new Israeli proposal to control aid deliveries in Gaza, saying the UN would play no part in such a scheme. You're listening to the World News from the BBC. Israel's Supreme Court has blocked the sacking of the domestic security chief and given the government and the Attorney General until the end of next week to reach agreement over the plan. The Shin Bet chief, Ronan Bar, was set to be removed after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said last month that he no longer trusted him, a decision backed by the entire cabinet. He'll now remain in office until the 20th of April. A British study has found that extreme poverty can have as big an impact on the brain development of babies as being born prematurely. Researchers found that families with a low income and limited access to education and jobs can cause developmental problems in babies, even if they are born at full term. Those born at 25 weeks to a less deprived family faced fewer problems. Thousands of anti-government protesters have blocked a bridge in central Budapest in opposition to a ban on LGBT pride parades passed by the Hungarian parliament last month. They argue the law curbs the right to freedom of assembly and is part of a wider government policy to undermine democratic norms ahead of next year's parliamentary elections. This woman explained why she decided to protest.
I
think that we've got nowhere to retreat. Until now, we've been able to try to make deals and look for compromises, but that time has passed. If we don't stand up for the rights of minorities and for our own fundamental rights, then who will when they come for us? We've reached the point where we have to stand up and say no more.
The reigning European football champions Real Madrid have been beaten 3-0 by Arsenal in the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final. Declan Rice scored 2 spectacular free kicks to help the London club take control ahead of the second leg in Spain. In Germany, Inter Milan scored in the 88th minute to beat Bayern Munich 2-1. BBC World News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, and myself, Austin Harris. Again, another exciting and insightful and informative conversation with Jordan Rivers there.
The gentleman never ceases to amaze me. It was good to have him in the studio. Again, I think all of the feedback, now granted, as my friend Roy would say, it's the bottom, right?
Yeah.
This is not empirical evidence.
Right.
But let me just say, I think from all the survey results, it definitely seems a lot of people like the young man.
Yeah.
Very articulate. You can't have an articulate mind like that unless you have an intelligent brain as well.
Yep.
And he seems to have the strength of character, but at the same time, the humility to be able to sit and say, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to hear and absorb all of those points, put it all into deliberation, and make an informed decision.
Yes.
I think he's heading in the absolute right direction and wishing him the best of luck.
Oh.
And for all those persons out there who support him, well, go ahead, spread the word. I'm pretty sure he'll greatly appreciate it. At the end of the day, all of us have an obligation to do what is right to get the best person coming out of the various constituencies. That's what we want.
Indeed. And again, in case you missed it, Jordan Rivers today telling us he stands for stiffer penalties in our legal structure for offenders, a push for a public sexual offender registry for minors, and, of course, a call for broader police engagement at the community level. All three very admirable areas, and certainly areas in which I'm sure he has wide support on. You will have the opportunity to hear from Jordan Rivers again next week, Tuesday, the 15th of April, right here on Straight Talk. Just a good opportunity to remind you what's coming up during the week. First of all, starting with tomorrow, an open mic session again here on the program, unless we fill it between now and the next 12 hours. But tomorrow night, right after our show at 7 o'clock, Bobo 103.1 FM is proud to be carrying the Chamber Leaders Debate, which will feature the three leaders.
It's exciting.
It's a very exciting time. So 7 o'clock tomorrow, if you don't want to obviously go online for whatever reason, just want to turn on the radio and listen from your radio dial, either on your radio dial or, of course, online at 7 p.m. immediately following the Straight Talk program, you will have an opportunity to participate and hear that debate. So certainly, to my colleague's point, a very exciting time.
Yeah, because, again, highlighted, this is the first time. This is the first time that Chamber is doing this. And again, I want to take my hats off to Chamber for a lot of different things that they do. But in this particular case, having these debates every election, giving people a chance to hear their candidates. And I want, again, to reiterate that persons should be very cautious, to say the least, when your candidates aren't showing up without a legitimate reason to debate. That in itself, to me, should be a ringer. Yeah. But this is something where for the first time, we're going to hear all of the leaders of our respective groupings and our parties come forward in a debate. That helps persons to make a very informed decision, sometimes to the detriment, because you can have a leader that just causes the rest of the group to tank, when in fact there was some very good candidates there. But it's a new addition, and I want to thank Chamber for it, and it's going to be exciting to be hearing it tomorrow.
Though not wanting to, give them all the flowers.
Of course.
Certainly the Chamber, picked up and filled a void in their Chamber debates, but certainly a feather in, our cap, my friend. Once upon a time, we were the first in our former morning program to offer nationwide debates in all of the districts back when we were, of course, challenging elections on a district-by-district basis and not just a constituency basis. Certainly in our former life, we were the first to present that.
Well, I thank you for that historical context. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm delighted to see, obviously, the Chamber picking up and filling a void that was left absent for a period of time. And likewise, I agree with you and join and echo in your compliments to the Chamber for providing a very significant public service. Again, on Wednesday night, that's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Bobo FM 103.1 will be hosting the Chamber Leaders Forum or Leaders Debate, which will be the first time anything like this has ever happened in history. So this is certainly a flower in the cap for the Chamber. And again, we thank them for it. 7 o'clock is the time immediately following this program here on Straight Talk. On Thursday, speaking of CINP, Cayman Islands National Party candidates, we will then go to the constituency of Red Bay, where we will host for the first time on this program Miss Dawn Thomas, who is vying for a seat in that constituency of Red Bay. Obviously, some may recall we heard from Mr. Philip Ebanks once already on this program. Now we'll hear from Miss Dawn Thomas, and her appearance is scheduled for Thursday again at 5 p.m. So I want to encourage members of first of all, the Red Bay constituency to tune in, but obviously the wider Cayman Islands, if you want to hear what Miss Thomas has to say and what certainly will be her priorities should she be successful at the polls, well, tune in to Straight Talk on Bobo 103.1 FM to hear all of those.
Sorry, the name again?
Dawn Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. Austin, I want to say, first of all, I'm happy to be back here on the radio waves with you.
Thank you. So am I.
Yeah. Thank God we're still alive to be able to do that. I think it's good to have us back, but I use that at the same time to compliment the fact that the old Cayman 27 team is back, via it's now, what are they calling it now?
Compass TV.
Yeah, Compass TV.
Yeah.
But that is the Cayman 27 that we lost a long time ago, basically. I hope no one minds me saying that. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's just really good to see it back.
Yes.
I think a lot of people have missed the television.
They have.
And I think the more and more objective media we can have in this country, the better it is. So hopefully we can get lots of objectivism as we got in the past.
Sure.
And again, congratulations to the Compass Media. And again, I will just put the caption, the old Cayman 27 team. I had a chance to just swing by and someone gave me a little tour. It's good to see the same familiar faces.
Very nice.
A lot of Caymanians there employed. Makes my soul happy.
Absolutely. And to your point, a lot of persons in the community are happy that
to have it back,
that television back on the air, so to speak. So certainly likewise, congratulations to all of them. 745-2626 is the number. 13 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock is the time in studios. Whether you want to share a thought in relation to our guest, Mr. Jordan Rivers, or you want to take us back to some of the conversations we were having prior to the 5 o'clock hour, now is your opportunity to do so. Likewise, certainly we have the we call it the 1-800 number. It's the WhatsApp number. You don't have to pay to be a part of the conversation. You can dial 928-2562, and from there either send us a WhatsApp audio note or a WhatsApp traditional
I hear you
message.
getting some WhatsApp, but while you're getting, I have to read this one. I mean, this is like the conversationalist. It's a single liner.
Yeah, okay.
I like Jordan Rivers.
Yeah, I like Jordan Rivers as well. One of those messages that came in, I'm happy to see Anna back where Anna's supposed to be. Written exactly.
Just like that.
Spoken exactly as it was written. You can tell us a Caymanian on the other side of that.
Yeah, look, I like happy
I'm
to Anna
happy
back.
to see Anna back where Anna's supposed to be. Well, I agree with that that listener. This is where I feel most at home, and I'm grateful to God and to you for bringing us back together.
Yeah, man.
And certainly to the listening audience, it's always our goal to educate, enlighten, and elevate. That's how we start out and approach every single day, and we just hope.
I came to get you 2 times.
I know you came to get me 2 times.
Good thing I can get that 3 strikes you out.
No, I was glad you kept trying. I'm glad you kept trying, but as I say, nothing happened before its time.
Yeah.
After that 2021 election, nobody was more disappointed at the results than me. And honestly, I didn't know whether I was coming or going for a little while there. And I certainly wasn't sure whether I wanted to get back into the fray of things. But also, as one of the songs said, I've been silent too long. And now I'm happy to be back in the saddle.
Well,
and what better colleague to have with me side by side than you?
Not to make it too much of a big deal, my friend. But I was disappointed on the results with yourself. And all I can say is we need some reform.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of good candidates not get back in there, and I don't even want to call names.
Yeah.
It's like, what in the world are people thinking here?
Yeah.
But hey.
Yeah.
I don't know. Miss a couple of weddings, funerals, didn't carry enough cake, and I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Don't let it worry you.
No, indeed.
The dogs bark, but the caravan must go on.
And we use that to say, listen, we're out of it. So, it's not about us. It's not about crying over spilt milk or, whatever.
Well, let's try to get some good candidates.
Let's try to get some good candidates. I mean, listen, I don't know
nonsense.
how many people need to be reminded what the last 4 years look like. And I'm not saying anything derogatory towards the individuals who were successful, but how they applied their time and, how they applied themselves in the leadership role left a whole lot to be desired. And again, we look at the numbers, the country in the red, not in the black, potentially staring down the rifle of another UK intervention, and $570 million in national debt. And as I said yesterday, show me where that money is gone. Just give me something tangible that I can hang on to, but it's a struggle. So yes, 25,000 plus eligible Caymanian voters who are on the voters register. Please, I encourage you, show up at the polls. I don't care if you agree with me or Ellio or not, whether one or the other is a better candidate, but exercise your democratic right to vote and participate. It takes less than 30 minutes of your time. We've got the election process, and this is where we got to say kudos and thank you to the elections office. They have got this election process down to a fine, well-oiled machine. They do a great job in managing crowds. And really, you go to vote, okay, so you may wait maybe 30 minutes, maybe there's a long line. Okay, but you got all day to do it. So if it doesn't work out early in the morning, come back in the afternoon. But either way, whether you stay from start to finish, it's not going to last more than 30 minutes. Show up. 2021, 6,000 registered voters, for whatever reason, chose not to participate. Arguably, we got what we got as a result of that. So I encourage Caymanians and those who have the right to vote, who are eligible to vote, please. It's a public holiday. The least you can do is show up and exercise that democratic right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, just want to encourage everyone. You have the important decision to make. I just want to see a little bit of reform because I've seen it over the years, and as my friend has said, we don't have any horse in this particular race. It's just about wanting to see the best thing. We need to really get past the who had a beer with me, who came to the daddy's funeral. That might count when we're considering the character, assuming everything else is falling in place.
Yes.
But hopefully we've gone beyond, who showed up at my door the most. It's about looking at people. What if they were in there as incumbents? Let's look and say, what have they done? What have they accomplished? What have they done for the country? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
If they're not in there, then let us look at the character of the person. Let's look at what they're saying. Let's look at how they say it. Make some very good judgments because there's both new candidates that are running that deserves to be in there. There's some persons who have already been in there that deserves to be returned. Let's just make some good, wise decisions. And I don't think it has anything to do necessarily with who bought you a beer at the bar or,
Yeah.
Please.
Indeed.
Let's move on from that.
It is a monstrous responsibility and obligation, but it is an opportunity we're afforded in this part of the world and any part of the world where, we have the democratic right to choose.
Yeah.
People died
and people
for that
fought
right
for that,
in this country, and we should not waste it.
Don't take it lightly.
Indeed. 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, giving us just under 9 minutes before we have to wrap it up for today. We tried to get to this one headline at least 2 or 3 times at the 4:30 hour. So with 8 minutes remaining, let's hit it now. In today's headlines, taken from the pages of the Cayman Compass, with the title U.S. Tariffs, and obviously their impact on the Cayman Islands. A 10% tariff was imposed on all imports and exports, both to Cayman and out of Cayman, and will impact products from cell phones to running shoes to steel for development, as well as fresh produce, all of which have a complex global supply chain and will attract tariffs that make them more expensive in the first instance in the U.S. and thereafter even more so for the Cayman Islands. Of course, there are a few local companies that do ship products from the Cayman Islands to the U.S., and they say the 10% export tariff is another headache. One of those companies, the Tortuga Rum Company, who said that we produce little more than 1 million pounds. Let that sink in for a second. 1 million pounds of rum cake each year, at around 50% of what is for the U.S. export market. These tariffs will impact the ingredients, obviously, that go into those cakes, as well as the machinery that produces them, and even the cost of living for their staff. So we can clearly see in one instance where, rum cakes will be impacted, but likewise, the same ingredients that go into making them go into making a lot of other food stuff that you consume in the family. Many people already complain about the high prices at the grocery store. And frankly, that's also can only be expected to increase. Another area where the 10% tariffs will be affected will be specifically where Cayman exports to the United States and the rest of the world. And when I thought about it, I thought, well, what do we really export? But I'm glad the article pointed it out because I had forgotten about it. We export rum, specifically from the Cayman the Cayman Spirits Company. 7 Fathoms rum is exported not only to the U.S., but to Germany, the U.K., and Canada. And that will also be impacted as a result of the 10% tariffs. Of course, at the grocery store level, we're going to see impacts in the fresh produce and fish at the local markets, things like sea salt, cigars, artwork, souvenirs, and a handful of other products could attract small sales volumes from overseas. Certainly, when you think about artwork and souvenirs, those in the craft market, are going to be impacted. Whether it be the materials they bring in to make their materials, or certainly the stores that cater to cruise tourism or stayover tourism. We note that inflation is up a further I think I read somewhere 2.9%. I say that cautiously because I can't state whether that's exactly what I saw. If I can find it again, I'll share those specific details. But costs are going up, and cost of living is already high in this country. That is going to be another challenge for the incoming administration to address. Some of these issues that obviously lead to these increasing prices are external to us, so perhaps nothing we can do about it. Or the things that we can do, and again, based on where we go with U.S. tariffs, see, 10% seems like a small increase, and certainly in terms of the overall list of Trump's tariffs that have been, announced, that is on the low end. But we heard today that Donald Trump intends to impose a 104% increase in tariff on China. We talk about cell phones, where everything comes from, but not just cell phones. All of the materials, the software, the microchips that the world runs on, arguably all made in China. It is going to have an impact. And some of these areas are outside of our control. The parts that we can control may be, force an adjustment on our duty rates here at home so that, we don't price ourselves entirely to death. But there are some significant concerns coming over the next horizon, and Donald Trump and his tariffs are just one of them. And to, again, quote what the business industry is saying, it's just another headache of an expense that business does not need. And certainly, if business don't like it, you can guarantee the consumers not going to want it. Not going to like it either.
Yeah, and just on the export, I know it's typical that when we think about export, we're thinking about a particular product. But bear in mind that we also have another export, or two exports at least, and that's services, right? And, when we talk about tourism, for example, tourism is an export.
Yes.
It's bringing foreign currency into the country, so is financial services. And again, all the more reason that we want to make sure and provide a good product/service there as well.
Yes.
But I'm really proud, obviously, of the rum cake. I mean, that is something that has really put Cayman Islands on the map. And I just want to say it. I got a picture today from we have, amongst other things, someone visiting from CTC at the Sea Trade, and they sent a picture, and there was all of the Tortuga rum cakes at the Sea Trade. And by the way, Cayman Islands seems to be sponsoring a major part of that event via the Department of Tourism. I did not know all of this.
Yeah. I learned something new.
I did not know this.
There you go.
So the signs are all there, and it's just really good to see Cayman Islands being represented at such an important thing. And this is countries all around the world. Yes. Large event taking place in Florida, and it's good to see Cayman Islands represented. It's good to see the rum cake and all the other things. And I want us to be doing the exact same thing when it comes to our services, whether it be financial services or whether it comes to our tourism. Cayman has a lot to be proud about, and I hope that nobody's going to make anyone come here and just snatch it out of their hands.
No, absolutely.
Because we have a lot to be proud about.
Indeed.
I mean, sorry, just to cut in again, I remember when I actually interviewed Mr. Hamilton years ago when I had Vision. And hearing the story about, again, by, a Caymanian woman, talking about making a rum cake. And just think about where it is today when you talked about millions of rum cakes.
Yeah, 1 million pounds of rum cake produced every 1 million pounds. Think about that.
It's like,
that's a lot of rum cake.
And this is again where I talk about my favorite subject for the week or for the month is cruise tourism. You got to understand. You can sit in your home right now and come up with an idea. I don't care if it's, can I make a bracelet? Make a bracelet out of coconut husk. Or what do you call it? The shell or whatever. Whatever idea you can come up with, there are hundreds of thousands / millions of people that you can sell that product to.
Yeah.
And very few things offer you an opportunity like that. We need to take advantage of it. This is why we've had so many people, Caymanians have made, that I think one story that Mr. Simon Boxall wrote, here is someone that was smoking marijuana and wasting their life away and now running around a successful businessman with lots of buses.
Yes.
This is the sort of great stories.
From Georgetown. Yes. No, he's doing some great things in holistic medicine, alternative medicine, obviously extracting the CBD from the otherwise marijuana or cannabis plant and using that to heal persons of things that otherwise modern science arguably hasn't found a cure or a pill for, but we're seeing much gains in that area. I want to send a shout out to him. Christopher Nixon, I grew up with him. I grew up on Elgin Avenue, and he was on the same Elgin Avenue, just up the road, almost across from what still is the Georgetown Police Station. So big up, Mr. Nixon, if you're listening.
Well, I want to clarify. That wasn't who I was talking about, but I'm glad you raised that one because I agree with that, too.
Okay.
I was talking specifically about one that Simon wrote about. I think the guy was from West Bay.
Okay.
I think he's in England, but I could be wrong. I don't remember all the details of the story. It was
15 seconds.
It was the capture of it, but I thank you for raising that one, too. I know Mr. Nixon as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to Straight Talk with your two favorite hosts, Austin Harris and myself, Ellio Solomon. See you right here tomorrow.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is